This is Undaunted.Life, a man's podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Thompson. Let's get into it. All right, guys, we got a special guest on the podcast today. His name is Brian Littlefield. So he is the co-founder of Jocko Fuel. He's actually still serving there as the chief product officer, and he's also a BJJ black belt. You basically can't work at Jocko Fuel or Origin unless you're a black belt in jiu-jitsu, apparently. But the cool thing about him is he's got a very, very long story of how he got into the current role that he's in. He didn't just get there because he's a good business guy or a good sales guy or a good marketing guy. This is a guy that's been tinkering with nutrition and supplementation for a very, very long time. And so in this particular interview, we go into, how a childhood diagnosis of cancer for his brother, how that kind of led him down this path of trying to figure out different ways that you can supplement and diet, maybe kind of like an anti-cancer type diet type of a thing, why he got interested in studying these things, but also studying the business of that, how he lost over 100 pounds of himself personally. And in addition to that, when he started doing jiu-jitsu, he started working and compounding and doing some different things, creating his own supplements and kind of testing it on himself. He was like his own lab rat, and the guys that he rolled with were his lab rats as well. But we get into the original Jocko Fuel, which was called Origin Labs, and then they met Jocko. He became a partner in Origin, and then they created the Jocko Fuel brand. And then when we get into the discussion about Jocko Fuel, we're talking about, okay, how are you guys clean? Because a lot of people say that they're clean, and then you look at the ingredients and you're like, this doesn't seem very clean. And so for them, why clean ingredients? Why not just go with cheaper ingredients that you can just, make bigger margins on? But we talk about what are some of the risks people take when they just buy supplements that they're not sure of what's in them. What makes the energy drink clean? What makes the nootropic, their new, Jocko Brain Power nootropic? Like, what does that even mean? Like, a lot of people hear Joe Rogan or someone say nootropic and they're like, okay, I guess this is a good thing. We also talk about their forthcoming hydration drink, which is an amazing thing. We talk about future products. And then at the very, very end, I pitch him on a flavor. Okay, a flavor for the future Jocko Fuel brand. And so that was pretty interesting. And then we talk about certain supplements like, hey, if you don't have all the money in the world, like what are some supplements that every guy should be taking? So if you're an active guy, you run or you do jujitsu or you do CrossFit or you're just naturally active or you're choosing to be active, what are those things that just at a bare minimum you need to take? And so we spent a lot of time talking about all those different things. I really enjoyed my time with them. So guys, without further ado, let's get into it. Brian Littlefield, welcome to Undaunted.Life, a man's podcast.
Thanks for having me on.
Now, here's the thing. With all you Jocko Fuel and Origin guys, you're always hanging out in Maine, talking about how much snow you're shoveling and all that. But I don't know if palm trees are native to Maine, but it doesn't look like you're actually in Maine right now. What's the deal? Are you mad at those guys?
No, not mad. I think they might be a little bit jealous of me, though. Down here, enjoying the beautiful Florida winter. It's not winter anymore, though. As I mentioned shortly ago, it's you wake up first thing in the morning, it's 80 degrees. But oddly enough, we came down here in January, we've been down here ever since. First winter, we decided to stay down here with the family, and in January at night it would drop into like the high 40s. So I was actually surprised at how cold it would get, but it didn't stay that cold long.
Well, and it's not like below zero with like 4 feet of snow that fell overnight. So it's probably a good thing that you hung out over there. So we're going to talk nutrition today. We're going to talk about a lot of stuff that comes from your background. I'm very excited to talk to you about all of this. And I'm always interested in, okay, how did people get interested in this? So if they're a professional at this thing, okay, it's when did you start being like interested in that thing? But from what I know about your story, your interest in health and nutrition and fitness and all that kind of had a little bit of a negative beginning to it because your brother, Ryan, was actually diagnosed with childhood cancer. And that's, in a lot of ways, the beginning of your story. So how about you start there and then we'll weave through?
Yeah. That's probably, I try and think back. I've told the story a few times. I think back of the sort of the inception point of when I gained interest in this type of stuff. And, I was, I was 10 years younger than him. And he was 16 when he was diagnosed. So I was like between the ages of 6 and I think 8 or 9 when he was dealing with going through chemo. And I remember my parents bringing him back and forth between Maine and Boston for treatment. And it obviously left an impact on me. I think it was very deep-rooted and subconscious because it didn't, at that age, it leaves an impact on you, but you don't really know what to do with it, right? Like you just have no idea. So it's just kind of there. So that was definitely there. My father was always somewhat holistic and kind of grew to be more holistic as he aged, interestingly enough. And I came from like an athletic family, and I was like the least athletic son. So in the family, like everybody else, the sons, I should say, all played sports and were relatively fit. And I always struggled, a little bit of a chubby child. I
Hmm.
always struggled. And when I stopped playing sports in high school, I gained a lot of weight, and then my freshman year in college, kind of ballooned up to about 265 pounds. And then I had kind of like you know uh, a reckoning, and literally, I didn't know what the term was back then. Jocko had coined the term, to kind of find the path. I didn't know what the path was at that time. I just knew something needed to change, and that's what happened. It's a whole thing, but that's how I found, personal health and wellness, and it became. It's part of my personality. I when I kind of get honed in on something, it becomes like a obsession or hyper focus, tunnel vision, and I went from living this unhealthy lifestyle very early in college, 21 years of age, so I could drink, partying, to just a switch of like being obsessed with going to the gym, basically every day of the week, trying to eat healthy and read and digest information. And I'm also all about like leverage. So I tried to absorb every piece of information I could about health and wellness and nutrition and supplementation, nutraceuticals and everything. So um, it was just it's just been a personal journey. And yeah, to your point earlier, probably all stemmed from the the understanding that life is precious and our health isn't guaranteed.
One, what's interesting about your story is there are a lot of people that will get to that point where they make a bunch of bad decisions, stack them on top of each other, gain a bunch of weight, and then they just like they either try to make everybody else around them kind of acquiesce to their new life decisions, or they just start to make excuses for themselves. And oh, I'm big boned, or I've got bad genetics, or something like that. But I was a chubby kid as well. I was always a pretty good athlete, but I was a chubby kid. Red hair, freckles, like no skin pigment. So I was like an easy target, right? And so when I discovered exercise and fitness and all that, it's like I've just been completely obsessed, because it's like I hated the feeling of going to the community pool and taking my shirt off, and I hated the feeling of being made fun of. And people are like, "Oh, that's so negative." I was like, but it drives me. It drives me to this day, because I haven't taken a week off of working out except for injuries since I was like 15 or 16 years old. Like that's how important this all is to me.
Yeah.
But for you, I mean, you didn't just absorb everything you could in terms of science and nutrition, but also in business, and that kind of led you to some other opportunities as you were kind of on your journey, to where you at one point became your own test subject, that you started like doing mad scientist work in your house, like mixing up
Yeah.
your own supplements and doing stuff like that and your own ingredients. So take me through that, because I am so unbelievably conservative when it comes to everything supplement related. So the idea of me getting my own crap and like putting it together and mixing it and testing it on myself sounds like completely insane.
Yeah. I mean, to be honest, I was pretty wild in my teens and early 20s. And so it never really crossed my mind that I partied. I partied in my late teens and early 20s. My parents were very like, don't get arrested, don't get arrested, wear protection, uh, you know, don't get yourself killed, but you need to live your life and you need to learn your lessons, and that's what I did. And I that also that mindset sort of a little bit of fearlessness lived into that time period where I was like, okay, I'm gonna try anything and everything, and I want to see what works. I was just so interested by the idea and the concept of natural products and compounds that come from the earth that could be used to leverage a benefit of either weight loss or cognitive function or muscle gain. It was just like this plethora of things that you could do, and this plethora of ingredients that can be used. How do you sift through it all? Well, the best way to do that is to be your own guinea pig and see what works.
Mm.
And that's how I started. Later on, I opened up my own small brick and mortar supplement shop, and so I was able to have the customer base of guinea pigs, of course, our internal gym, who we had a gym where we had jiu-jitsu and MMA fighters, so they wanted curated programs and stuff. So I was able to see what worked for athletes, what worked for the average mom who was bringing her child in for kids classes and things like that. So it was really a great experience, and I also got to see everything in the industry, because when you own a small brick and mortar store, every company imaginable is sending you samples. They want to send you pamphlets or information, or they want to send their sales reps by, or they send you. So it was just became an encyclopedia of this stuff for many years, and so I just tried to absorb as much as I could. So I got to learn the nutraceutical side and the small business side as well.
Well, I definitely want to get back to talking a little bit more about maximizing this, because around the time that you were doing your new the supplement store and the brick and mortar thing, that was around the time you got your black belt. And so this was somewhat in the earlier days of jiu-jitsu, where, there weren't as many black belts, and there are people that really haven't started focusing on how you can maximize your fitness and your training and your supplementation for specifically the sport of jiu-jitsu. But at one point, you end up going back to Maine, which is where you were from, and partnering with your old buddy, Pete Roberts. And you guys launched, or I guess you co-founded, the nutrition division of Origin. So Origin was already around making gis. I don't know if they were making jeans or whatever yet, but you launched the nutrition division. It was called Origin Labs. So take me back to that, because you were kind of like, mad scientist, and then you were solopreneur, and then you kind of go back and you hook up with Pete, and there's a lot going on at that time. It's not nearly what it is right now, but just take us through that time period.
Yeah. I mean, I'm running my small little brick and mortar store, still being a guinea pig for myself, like I said, testing out products on everyone who wanted to do that. And I had met Pete, I think, a year prior on a trip up to Maine to visit family, and I had just said, "Hey, man, if there's anything you ever need, I'd love to help join the mission, because if there's one thing I'm as passionate about it with something like jiu-jitsu or supplementation, it's American manufacturing, and just America in general. I guess I'm a nationalist, so I would say those two things aligned. You had American manufacturing and sporting community, bringing back jobs, small business. I'm obsessed with all this, but now it's in jiu-jitsu, which at that time I was obviously had been in for many years. So the stars sort of aligned, and I started helping Pete build out a sort of a wholesale program selling academies, either custom gis for their academy or Origin gis, or there was no jeans and boots and things like that in those days. It was literally just jiu-jitsu gis, and then barely got into rash guards. And it just got it grew fast. It grew really fast, and at that time, I was at a pivotal point where I wanted to make a change as well. I was looking for something new, something bigger, looking for the next opportunity. And Pete had said, why don't you come back to Maine? That's where I grew up. That's where my family was. So I basically jumped all over it and came back. It wasn't long before I was helping him run operations. Became the company's first COO. Went from 7 employees to 35 employees in a period of a year. We had a really, we were this company's still blitzscaling, but we were blitzscaling back then heavily. And during that same exact time, that's when we launched Origin Labs, which was a division, kind of a sister company to Origin. And Pete and I essentially founded that with Pete's original partner, Jocko, on the Origin side. And then a year later, that's when Jocko came on.
Well, let's talk a little bit about that, because it really wasn't long. You have Origin Labs, and then Jocko comes on board. Obviously, he was interested in the American-made jiu-jitsu gis. He's talked about that ad nauseum at this point. But then you all come together. He becomes a partner with Origin, and then Origin Labs seemingly just becomes Jocko Fuel. So take me through that, because Jocko kind of has his own gravitational pull, right? So it starts with his being a Navy SEAL and all the different stuff he did with that. And then it was extreme ownership, and then it was echelon front. And then it's, he's obviously been big in the jiu-jitsu community for a long time. And all these things kind of coalesced at the same time whenever he was partnering with Origin, which has obviously done wonders for the Origin brand and for obviously Jocko Fuel, which is the brand that bears his name. But just take me through that, because there are plenty of guys that have decent name recognition that have sold a few books that would be a terrible partner in any type of a business context, specifically anything to do with nutrition. So it seems to be like a match made in heaven with Jocko, though.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, Jocko, everybody knows he's unique, and he's not probably, he'd probably look at me weird if I said this to him and he heard me, but he's special in the way that he's different from a lot of those other people that you mentioned. And we didn't know that in the beginning. We didn't know that. We had a sense, it was a bit of an intuition. I remember talking to Pete about it a lot. We had many, many deep conversations like, do we just drop what we're doing with Origin Labs and turn this thing into Jocko Fuel and run with it? And ultimately, that's what we ended up deciding to do. And it came from spending a little bit of time with Jocko, having some conversations with him. He had some reservations, right? Because he had a negative experience in the supplement industry years prior. And so, we talked about how, we collaborated, like, how can we do it, but do it right for consumers, which ultimately was very easy. It's just, are you aligned with people that are going to hold the line for you? And ultimately, when you put his name on the package, someone who's respected, that has done all the things that he's done, becoming a Navy SEAL for one is incredible. And then a, top podcaster, best-selling author, incredible family man, business owner. It just goes on and on and on. So, every one of those things is an incredible accomplishment. You stack them all up and you have this person who is, as I kind of reference, is special. And so you have this legacy that you can ruin so easily if you, sell a tainted supplement, or you, run a batch of product and it ends up getting someone sick. And, listen, it's manufacturing, things happen. But like the level of extra consideration and scrutiny that we went through, and myself personally that I went through, to vet every single supplier and manufacturer was rigorous. And it still is to this day. But we knew that when we put his name on the package, we were getting the advantage of his trust and authenticity that he had built with millions of people. But we also knew that we were taking a massive risk, not even in the sense of like, hey, you're risking everything on one man. That's not really the risk. It's the risk of, if you're a company and you make a mistake, you can rebrand, you can, refocus people's attention on other things. You can kind of wait it out. I feel it's a lot easier to cancel a person than it is to cancel a company.
Sure.
And so you're taking a greater risk there. Is like, we could have screwed it up early on pretty easily. And thankfully we didn't. But that was kind of the inception of it. Is like, we all just sat down, Pete, Jocko, and I, and just said, hey, how do we do it? How do we do it right? And, and what do we want to do ultimately? Like, what is the long-term vision? And so we crafted that and we said go, and it's been a rocket ship ever since.
Well, so let's talk a little bit about one of the focuses for what y'all do, and that's creating these supplements and all of your different products with clean ingredients. And so everyone's seemingly got their own definition of clean. There are people that will literally advertise their stuff as clean, and then you just turn it around and look at the stuff that's included, and you're like, oh my gosh, this stuff's going to kill me if I drink too much of it. And as I've mentioned earlier, and I think I mentioned offline, like, I'm very, very, very conservative about what I put in my body. Like in high school, all my friends were experimenting with all kinds of stuff. I didn't even take whey protein because I was like, nope, not enough research yet. And like, same thing with like creatine. I just kind of slowly started adding things to where it's like, okay, creatine's been on the market for about 40 years. Don't see any deleterious problems with that. So, okay, I'll start taking that. But when your brand says, hey, we're clean ingredients, we're clean energy, we're clean this, clean that, like, tell us, kind of take us through what that seems like. Cause I feel like a lot of guys, Brian, they just walk into GNC, they see what's in their budget and they take it. And they're just like, I'll deal with the risks later. And then, you know, you have all these different problems with tainted supplements. We've seen that obviously in MMA with people popping for tainted supplements. We've seen stuff where it's supposed to have this in it, but it has some other things in it that are illegal and illicit that do negative things to people's hearts. It's like a whole thing that's very, very concerning, but apparently not concerning to too many or to enough people. But, you know, clean ingredients, like why go that route? Why not just get the cheaper stuff and then just, you know, who cares?
Well, the why is actually obviously super easy. It's you know, Jocko's for us, I would say, Jocko's kind of origin story of supplementation comes from the old school days when his kids were younger, and you know, and I believe in like competitive sports, and you know, he himself was also consuming muscle milk, and not to throw them under the bus, you know, many companies have had issues, but this is his situation, and that was at the time when muscle milk got hit for Consumer Report, where they had excessive levels of heavy metals, and you know, and it was pretty excessive actually. You know, there's differences between like, hey, you know, you're a little bit over Prop 65, which is insanely low. It's basically like, and we could talk about that, but it's basically like what would be naturally occurring of anything growing coming from the ground. So people need to understand that. And then there's FDA level high, and that's really high. If something's over FDA level high, yeah, that's a problem. So these were pretty high, and you know, he had been feeding them to his kids. Like he's like, oh, this is protein. Protein is good for me. Protein good for my kids. Like they're, you know, it's like it's a food. It's sold in, you know, Walmart. It's sold in a grocery store. You know, it's sold in Kroger's. So I'm sure it's good to go. I'm sure it's fine. It's just extra protein, and that is how people should be able to think about it, especially with something as simple as protein. But unfortunately, things happen, and that wasn't the case. So he was very, you know, let down by the industry, and so when we decided to go the clean route, it's just kind of like that's what we needed to do anyway. And so then what we had to do was define what was clean for us, because clean. Is a somewhat unregulated term. So it's really subjective. Now, my definition of clean and Logan Paul's definition of clean are not the same. You know, so when he comes out and says, we make a clean and healthy sports drink to give people a healthier option, I wish I could have a conversation with him and say, well, what makes it healthier than every other option on the market, Logan? Because if you're just comparing apples to apples, there's nothing. And I'm not one usually to necessarily call out people and companies, but you know, with all the craziness lately, and like you said, and people testing kind of the theme of what's clean, sometimes you have to speak up a little bit. So the reality is we have our definition of clean. We think it aligns with what industry respected professionals would say is also clean. A lot of people that are in the food, beverage, supplement, nutraceutical industry that consider the movement in clean, which is using non-banned substances, vetted suppliers, natural flavors, natural sweeteners. And I'm not going to tell you that artificial flavors or artificial sweeteners are going to kill you or cause you to grow an arm out of the side of your head or whatever. But we opt for what we consider as clean. And, you know, also, you know, part of our clean is also the image. So we don't use proprietary blends. Like we don't use one big number and then cram a bunch of ingredients into that and say, oh, you can't know, oh, it's proprietary to us. It's special. You can't know how much, you know, elderberry is in there. Like that's proprietary to us. No, like we label every single ingredient so that you know exactly what you're getting, because not only do people deserve the transparency, they need it, because some of these ingredients have serious effects on the body. So they can interact with things like blood pressure medication, blood sugar medication, cognitive medications, Alzheimer's medications, Parkinson's medications. They can interact positively or negatively with those medications. If you're hiding those active ingredients in a blend, they don't know what they're up against. And so is it
Right.
10 milligrams or is it 1,000 milligrams? So it's really important. It's beyond just like transparency. It's like for people's health. And so that is for us like part of clean. So if someone is using, labels that are hiding things or artificial flavors or sweeteners or banned ingredients, that's just not clean to us.
And what's funny, as you were saying that, I'm reminded, because now that I have kids, I'm like very wary about what we're putting into them. Because when I was a kid, I hydrated on Shasta soda and I would drink it by the case. And, we had McDonald's on Monday and Arby's on Tuesday and Taco Bell on Wednesday. Like, it was just terrible. It's a miracle I'm even alive today. But you'll see these packages, Brian, that have like the packaging will be green and it'll have veggie in the name of the product. And it's like there's nothing veggie even, tangentially
Yeah.
related to what is actually in the package, but it makes you feel better because it says the word organic on it, which is also BS, but we don't have time to talk about that necessarily. I'm going to go back to your little salvo
Yeah.
you shot across the bow about Prime and Logan Paul and different things like that. And as we talked about, and as I admitted to you off air, I was like, Prime is delicious, but there's no such thing as a free lunch. Like, oh yeah, it's sugar free, but what in the world is in it that gets it to taste so intensely good to our, lizard brain or something like that? But for you guys, it's one thing to point and complain and be like, they're not doing it right. Maybe this company over here is doing that right. But one of the newest products that y'all are working on, or that is about to be released, that I'm super excited about, is your own hydration drink. And so by the time this podcast comes out, it wouldn't have been released quite yet. I think it's coming out in June, but it's a Jocko Fuel hydration drink. But I really want to talk more about this clean concept because, again, I grew up drinking Gatorade that had 30 grams of sugar in one little bottle. And I would just drink that after games because of electrolytes or something, right? Or it was mainly because of marketing. But like, what is the difference between what y'all are going to be releasing with the Jocko Fuel hydration drink versus other things on the market like a Prime or a full octane, Gatorade or the Gatorade Zero or any of that type of stuff that might be in people's fridges right now?
Yeah, the big difference is there's a few. And for such a simple product like an electrolyte beverage, which is essentially electrolytes, flavor, sweetener, and water. I mean, that's what it is. It's one of the simplest products we've created. It's actually mind blowing. I was on a call with Jocko the other day, a group call, and he said it's actually shocking that nobody has come along and said, "Hey, why can't we do this the way it should be done?" It's like, why haven't they like it's so what we did and what I created with the formula is like not it's not I don't know how to put it. It's like not evolutionary in the sense of like it's hard to design or understand why. It's just nobody has done it. And so I guess there's something to be said about being first, but the reality is this. Taking efficacy, I'll talk about efficacy in a second, but when we talk about let's touch on the clean factor. Nobody has created one with natural flavors and natural sweeteners that doesn't use sugar alcohols that actually tastes good. There's a couple that are just now emerging right now, and in my opinion, they are not very good. And that's very representative and historic of the industry, where they'll do a natural flavor and a natural sweetener beverage alternative or food alternative to their classic portfolio, and they just don't give a shit what it tastes like. It's just like, oh yeah, we'll just offer it for those people that are looking for it. They don't put any time or R&D into it, or if they do, they're just really bad at their job. So don't know what it is, but they just miss. They swing and miss. There's the clean side of things. Like, we don't use any artificial flavors, sweeteners, but it's actually, we believe, and we've blind tested this, we believe it's very, very leading in the category when it comes to flavor. Then the most important thing is the efficacy. And so when you sweat, and we're talking about hydration drinks, okay? So if I create a rehydration drink that doesn't rehydrate me, then it's not a rehydration drink. That doesn't make sense. And so we know that water alone doesn't hydrate us to the level of which a solution with electrolytes and minerals and salts will. when you go to the hospital and you get an IV, they don't just give you water. They're going to give you electrolytes. And so that is important. And there was this period of time through history where it was Gatorade and Powerade, and that was it. It was just Gatorade, and eventually Powerade came, and that was it. And there was sodium and chloride, which are the most important by content, but there were small amounts of it, and there was almost no potassium and magnesium. Okay. Then you had Body Armor that came and disrupted the category, but it was basically a potassium supplement. It was just high potassium. And then Prime came in and copied the same thing because it's basically coconut water based, which is basically all potassium. The problem with that is that nobody solved the problem. And the reality is you need more electrolytes than what is given in a Gatorade or a Powerade, but you don't need just potassium, because when you sweat, you lose chloride, followed by sodium, followed by potassium, followed by magnesium. And so you should be rehydrated in that ratio. But nobody had really done that or given you all of the electrolytes. So we just simply said, okay, let's formulate in that way. So it goes chloride. I think there's 540 milligrams of chloride. I have it right here. So there's 540 milligrams I'm drinking it because it's delicious. 300 milligrams of sodium, 200 milligrams of magnesium, and 200 milligrams of potassium, 100 milligrams of magnesium. In that ratio, what we did was we formulated to more closely mimic the electrolytes you lose when you sweat, number one. And then we added small amounts of magnesium and potassium to make up for the difference that most people don't get in their diet. So most people do get enough sodium in their diet, but even when they're athletes, you can still deplete, even as a child or as an adult, when you're sweating significant amounts, you're still depleting your sodium, even if you're consuming sodium. So you still probably need some sodium and chloride. And so what we did was we struck a balance between making sure that we're following the ratio, that hierarchy of chloride, sodium, potassium, magnesium, but also did it while upping the potassium and magnesium a little bit, but not making it a potassium supplement where there's no sodium, which is the most important thing you need when you're losing a ton of sweat. And it's just wild to me that nobody has done this yet. It's really, really bizarre. And it's not a cost thing. It's not.
Well, that's what I was about to ask.
Thing.
Is it like a cost thing that is cost prohibitive?
No. Electrolytes are dirt cheap. They're dirt cheap. Now, our natural flavors and our natural sweeteners portion is definitely expensive, especially our sweetener system. Like we have a trademark sweetener system. It is incredibly amazing. It's taken many years to get right, but it's very expensive. And that portion I can get. But why someone in the industry hasn't come along and said, hey, we're going to do a truly balanced electrolyte ratio is beyond me. So what we did was we came in and we did both. And, that'll come June 4th.
Okay, that's the Origin Jocko Fuel Way, June 4th, guys. Make sure you check that out. What are the initial flavors that we're going to be excited to try?
Blue raspberry, fruit punch, orange, and lemon lime.
Hey, guys, real quick. If you're anything like me, you are constantly on the lookout for high-quality products that are actually made here in America by American hands. The problem is that a lot of American companies have outsourced their labor overseas, so it's an American company, but it's supporting people that don't live here. So I've always wanted to partner with an American company that prioritizes America, American workers, and making all of their materials here in this country. That's why I want to remind you that we are partnered with Origin. Origin is an apparel company based in Maine, and they are focused on getting as much manufacturing back to the United States as they can possibly do. What do they make? They make the best jiu-jitsu gis on the planet, and these are the only jiu-jitsu gis that are made completely in America. They also make jeans. Yes, they're stretchy and awesome. They also make amazing hunting gear, and I know you guys love your Kuiu and your Sitka, but those companies use overseas labor, and they don't do that to help you guys out. They do that to increase their profit margins. Origin also makes boots and work boots, and yes, that does include steel-toe boots. And in the fall of last year, they launched a line of everyday clothing. Their Versa pants are their everyday pants, and they are just especially phenomenal. They also make other outdoor clothes and workout clothes, and they're launching new apparel stuff all the time. If you haven't already, you need to check them out and support a company that supports America and America's workers. Try Origin out today by going to www.originusa.com. That's originusa.com. Use the promo code Undaunted to get 10% off of your order. Again, that's originusa.com. Promo code Undaunted to get 10% off of your order. Okay, very good, very good. Well, I want to transition from one drink to another drink, and that's energy drinks, because obviously, when I was a kid, you would go into a 7-Eleven and they wouldn't be any energy drinks. It was all just soda and water and Gatorade. And now the majority of what you see that's not beer is energy drinks. And the thing about it is the thing about the Monsters and the Nas and the C4s, the flavors are extreme, and so are the ingredients. When you read the ingredients, you're like, dear God in heaven, I can't pronounce half of these. I have no idea what these are doing to me. And then obviously years ago, y'all come out with the Jocko Fuel version of that called Go. And over the years, you've improved the flavors, you've changed, the formula here and there. But really explain to me, like I'm 5, like how going and just getting a can of Monster and versus going and getting a Jocko Fuel, the difference you're getting just in the ingredients. Because again, we're very attracted to the thing that tastes extreme, but then we're not really thinking of the downstream consequences of what we're consuming and how often we're consuming it. And then the same thing that y'all have talked about even in your ads. I remember drinking a C4 one time, Brian, driving from Austin back to Oklahoma City. Right around Waco, I felt like my skin was like tingling, and like there was a force field around my skin. And I was like, I don't like this. Like, this is not good. I have no idea what I'm drinking that is making me feel this way, but I don't like it. But then you drink a Jocko Go, and you don't get that extreme, peak of energy and then the tremendous crash. You don't feel jittery. You don't feel that kind of unsettledness in your stomach. And again, I just know that that's the result. I don't know how that is the result. So help me understand the how.
Yeah. So, so to explain the how, let me touch real quick on the why. And so the why is we wanted to create a product that, again, was clean, but as importantly, worked in the way we wanted it to. And what that was we wanted balanced energy and focused. And that was really important to us. So Jocko's like, hey, if I was to take this, like he talked about having other ones, in the field, in the Middle East, and on missions, and these guys would be cracking things open, and they'd have these, like you mentioned, these super highs and super lows. And he's like, I don't want that. He's like, I want balanced energy. If I need a pick me up, I want it to pick me up, but I don't want it to bring me so high up that I'm jittery and I can't focus. Think about trying to look down a sight when you're like, on 300 milligrams of caffeine, and yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so we took that into consideration. And then what we also wanted to do was make it really, really balanced as you come down. And so we're able to do that by using less caffeine and leaning more on nootropic type ingredients. And so you don't get as high of a high, but you get a longer tail of energy. And we actually did a clinical study. We haven't published it. We have a 1-pager on it. But we did a clinical study where we tested our energy drink versus placebo and our energy drink versus the same amount of caffeine alone. And what people found was they not only did they find that they had more focus and energy when at their peak, but they were actually more balanced, and that they had a longer tail of energy. So their peak lasted longer. When you experience anything, like think about an adrenaline rush. If you have an absolute adrenaline rush and a spike and you dump, you're exhausted. But if as you come up smoothly, if you stay there, you're going to come down much more smoothly. So instead of having this massive spike and drop, you're brought up more smoothly, but you have a higher peak than caffeine alone. And then the tail itself stays and trends longer. So as you come down, you're not noticing that you're coming down hard. You're coming down much slower. And so we were able to do those things through the addition of theanine, carnitine, bacopa, when consumed over the long term, helps with the memory. And so these ingredients just were not traditionally used in energy drinks back when we launched, especially, back in 2018 when we were developing. I think we launched the first drink in 19. Like, that was unheard of. Like using, nootropics and energy drinks 5 years ago was unheard of. Now it's common. it's common use. We're still probably the only ones that are still, just under 100 milligrams of caffeine. So you have a little bit more balance. But most of those other drinks are like 16 ounces and they have between 300 and 400 milligrams of caffeine. And they're, there's a certain consumer out there that is always going to want those. And that's okay. That's not our consumer. Our consumer is like the professional that has to, like the police officer that needs to be able to, like, again, have energy, but be balanced and controlled and have focus. And also the executive who is like going into a board meeting and like wants a pick me up, but also wants the additional focus factor, but also can't be in there like barely able to keep his mouth closed because he can't sit still in his chair. So it's a balanced product for people that are looking for balanced energy, and that's what we created.
What's your favorite flavor of Go? The public needs to know this, Brian.
I've been pretty vocal about it. Pink lemonade, formerly known as Pink Mist, like that. That was that's still my favorite flavor to date. Although we have a new flavor coming out in July called Nitro Pop, and it's the kind of bomb pop type flavor. Yeah.
Okay. So I've been really in a running gun battle, but between pink lemonade and iced tea lemonade. So basically, if it's got lemonade in the name, guys, like you're absolutely going to smash. But I will say this: you talked about the nootropic stuff, right? So around that same time, Brian, 19, 20, 21, we keep hearing about nootropics. And so if you listen to Andrew Huberman, or if you listen to Joe Rogan, or you listen to any of this stuff, you keep hearing about nootropics. Now, if Joe Rogan mentions some sort of supplement that I've never heard of, my immediate default is like, I probably shouldn't take that because this guy also is high out of his mind most of the day. And so, no, I'm not going to like stick this experimental substance into my body because Joe Rogan mentioned it on a podcast when he was talking crap with a comedian. But you guys have done several different things on the nootropic side, not just the energy drinks, but just recently you released this Jocko brain power stuff, which this is the first nootropic supplement that I used outside of the Jocko Go. And the basic, well, I won't explain it. You explain what a nootropic is, because I think some people think they know what it is, but it's not exactly what they're thinking. Like, this isn't a magic pill that makes you be able to, solve calculus problems you weren't able to do the day before, or do some sort of like crazy otherworldly thing, but it does certainly help in the memory and energy field. So explain to us what a nootropic is and what the importance of using a nootropic supplement is as well.
Yeah, I mean, a nootropic is something that enhances at the 40,000 feet. It's something that enhances your cognitive ability in some way. Now, cognition, that term is actually super broad. It could be focus, it could be memory, it could be attention, short-term memory, long-term memory, mood. It's a number of things, and nootropic is a broad term for basically, does it enhance cognition on some level? And that term has become quite a buzz term over the last couple of years. I would say, especially over the last 3 years, probably. And there's a lot of different ingredients, natural and non-natural, right? There's a lot of pharmaceutical and experimental gray area type ingredients and compounds and peptides and things that are being tested to help improve cognition. But ultimately, everybody thinks about Limitless? I think that was the Limitless. Yeah, the pill. They take the pill, and then next thing, that's you could think of like that would be utopia of a nootropic, right? You take this pill, and it makes you basically way smarter, faster to respond, have infinite memory, those types of things, and crazy mood in a good way. Those types of things would be like the utopia of a nootropic. We're not there yet by any means, but we've made leaps and bounds to get towards that somewhat. And the brain power product it's actually a relaunch of the Go capsules that existed for a long time. So we had those Go capsules that was an old formula, worked really well. But what we decided to do is take a new spin on the category that was already getting a little stale. So the nootropic category was getting stale in the sense of you needed to have a cholinergic property to the product. So things like acetylcholine, alpha GPC, those things that enhance choline in the brain, which are directly correlated to things like memory and focus. Cholinergic deficiencies are linked to things like Alzheimer's and Parkinson's. So when you increase them, even in a healthy brain, you typically get increased performance output. But those things are kind of like staples. And so what we decided to do is okay, make sure that we have the support of the proven natural nootropic ingredients on the market. But let's also take a different approach of okay, what if someone wants because some of those things, they take a little while to have a benefit. And there's a lot of nootropics out there on the market that have similar type formulas, and there's a lot of good products actually, but none of them really address the need for instant performance, and that's what we decided to do to make it unique. And so we have a tri-blend in there. So obviously you're going to see some caffeine, which caffeine is a mild nootropic, but you're also going to see dynamine, and you're going to see teocrine in there. And those are caffeine-like substances. They're not caffeine, but they're caffeine-like substances that come from nature. And what they do is they are going to give you energy, but they have different half-lives. So they do a couple different things. So they're going to give you energy. They have different half-lives. So not only are you going to get this spike from caffeine, but you're going to get one a little bit longer from, let's say, teocrine, or one a little bit longer, let's say, from dynamine. So you have an extended performance period from the energy side of the nootropic, which is really, really important. But then you have additional benefits that you're not going to get from caffeine alone, like from dynamine, where you're going to get enhanced dopamine benefits. And when you have higher levels of dopamine, you're likely going to perform better. And so it's multifaceted. This sort of tri-blend is multifaceted in the way that it works on the brain to keep you focused longer, but it's doing that in an instantaneous way. It doesn't take months or weeks or even days. You're talking about you're getting an instant benefit 30 to 45 minutes after you've consumed it, and it continues to grow over a period of hours. And so that is something that nobody has really done, is combine like your classic, what we know as nootropic ingredients, things like choline, and with your kind of new age, let's say. I don't like using the word stimulants, even though you could consider them stimulants, but they are stimulants in the sense of by definition. But it's not like if people think stimulants, they think like amphetamines. You know what I mean? Like these are not that. Yeah, it's great. Like the dose that we have for dynamine and teocrine, there's a from the company that owns the trademarked compound. They did a clinical study on gaming, actually, and what they found was in that dosage, there was a statistically significant increase in reaction time over placebo group in gaming. And so these little benefits help you, especially if you're trying to be a high performer in whatever it is you're doing.
So that's really helpful, actually, because I had never even heard that some of these other nootropics, you had to just be on them. Because the way that I would think about it is like, okay, I'm not drinking an energy drink today so that I feel better on Friday. It's like, no, I need that now. And the same thing you would think would be for a nootropic. So I'm glad you kind of delineated that. But let's just talk just generally, Brian, as we're wrapping to a close here before too long. Let's say you're balling on a budget. Let's say you're not, made of money, and you can't just have all these supplements as clean as they are, because Jocko Fuel provides so many different things, like all the things we talk about today. But then there's sleep aids, there's the greens, which are fantastic. You've got creatine, you've got other vitamins, you've got even like a testosterone like boost type thing. It's not like, you're not taking testosterone, you're not like jamming it with a syringe into your butt, but like, if somebody's just got a little bit of extra money and they take their health and wellness seriously, what are kind of those core things that Jocko Fuel provides that you're like, okay, these are things that you need to have in your cabinet. These are things you need to be using every day?
It's a really good question. We do have a kind of general health and wellness assortment now. That would be things like Time War, which is we consider that sort of our foundational product now, which is a blend of a multivitamin, adaptogens, a a small amount of minerals and anti-aging, or we like to say healthy aging support blend as well. That is like a really good foundational product for people that maybe don't know where to start and they want to like just kind of improve their health. Essentially, what you're doing is you're making sure that you're getting all of your letter vitamins and you're supporting your stress markers with your adaptogens, and you're also supporting healthy aging by, uh, increasing the likelihood of healthy cell turnover, things like supporting natural autophagy and whatnot. That's a really great product. It is a premium product, but and then of course we have something like our greens product, which is we won top selling greens at Vitamin Shop
Oh, just as an
this year.
aside, I've tried every powdered green possibly in existence, and I just had resigned myself to the fact, like, okay, I guess greens are just going to taste like they were filtered off of dirty feet, and that's just the way it's going to be. But like y'all's greens, and even specifically the peach greens, like no lie, you could just throw that in water. You don't have to mix in a bunch of other crap to hide it. Like it is absolutely fantastic. So I definitely co-sign the greens.
Thank you. I appreciate it. One of the ways when I originally pitched the idea of doing greens to Jocko and Pete, which they were originally a little bit apprehensive, was, I said, hey guys, like nobody wants to drink greens because they taste gross. All we got to do is give them a solid formula, and all I have to do is make it taste good, and it'll be a winner. And, until people actually try what else is on the market. And since we've launched, companies have tried to improve. They've tried to get things a little bit better. But when we launched greens, there was nothing on the market that tasted halfway decent. It was,
No.
I called it like lawn clippings. I like filtered off dirty feet better. That's hilarious. But where I was going with the greens is like, again, another great general overall health product. I would say people get the most benefit with like digestive or immune health. I think we get a lot of feedback from people on their digestion, which makes sense because there's also a ridiculous probiotic blend in there, considering it's not a probiotic product. So a lot of digestive health benefits there. But what I would say is when we started creating the line, we looked at functional areas. So things like you mentioned, testosterone support, sleep, joint support for aching joints, or for someone who was like a former athlete. We wanted to attack these areas. So yes, if someone wants to go to the website and they want to load up on everything, hey, that's awesome. Thank you for support. Thank you for supporting us, and more importantly, yourself. But if you simply are just like, I don't want any of this, but I would love some help sleeping, then just get the sleep product and give it a try. Because we by no means think everybody should be on every single product. I look at it like it's a la carte. Like find the need, like use the need that you have, and we probably by now have a solution. Obviously we have a lot of products, and we're always adding to the assortment. Anytime that we can identify an area where we can either make a superior product efficaciously or give people a equal product but cleaner version, we like to do both. But anytime that we can kind of check either of those boxes, we'll consider going into that category. We don't just make Me Too products. So what I'd say is just identify the functional need that you need to replace, and check out the product.
All right, so I have to give a little background as to why you and I might look one day older. It's because there was a little tech snafu yesterday, and so we are literally recording the end of this interview a day later. But by the magic of modern technology, we're able to do that. So if we look like we're a little bit different, beard's a little bit longer, your 5 o'clock shadow's a little bit shorter, whatever the situation is, it's just a little bit different. But to follow up on what you were just saying yesterday, one of the great things about you guys is because you've built so much trust with your customer base, like when you release a magnesium product, well, I take magnesium. And so it's like, okay, when my bottle runs out, do I create a spreadsheet in Google and Amazon, the top 10 magnesium brands out there, or do I default to Jocko Fuel? So that's one of the virtues of you guys doing such good work for so long. But here's the thing, Brian, it's just me and you. No one else is listening to this right now. I want to know what's coming in the future. Okay. I want to know some flavors that are coming out. I want to know like the things that your competition wishes they could know. But again, it's just me and you. So the future of Jocko Fuel, like what do we have to look forward to outside of the bomb, different flavors, or, the hydration drink and stuff like that?
Yeah, so the obviously the very next things that are to come are the hydration drink, followed by the Nitro Prop Go RTD flavor, which we're pretty excited about. Both of those. One thing we haven't talked about that we're launching, it's an old Origin product that we revived and completely reformulated. That I kind of it kind of went through my focus point. It was definitely an afterthought in my brain at that time, but it's a really, really exciting product, which is a thermogenic. And so we actually talked about doing a thermogenic with Jocko Fuel for a long time, but it didn't feel right because, our messaging a lot is often like, it's hard work and it's discipline and there's no hacks. And I think the key is, you kind of touched on it when you talked about your magnesium, is we have a number of like our people, our consumers who ask like, hey, we really wish you could formulate something that is it's in the quote unquote fat burner category, but we don't believe in like fat burners. We believe in tools that can be used to help you in your goals. And so whatever your goal is, if that goal is to build muscle or, function at a higher cognitive level, or it's to lose some extra pounds, if we think that we can use actual science, not snake oil, and give you a healthy, clean product to do that, to really assist you in those goals, then we're going to do it. And so we finally got to a point where enough ingredient science, enough new ingredients had come out and been thoroughly tested, where we felt like we could put together a formula that made a difference. So it works on appetite suppression, natural GLP-1 increases from 2 different forms of ingredients, and blood sugar control. And with one ingredient being dihydroberberine, that has been shown to be basically as clinically effective as metformin. So people that are taking metformin for blood sugar control, if you're looking for something, or if your doctor's saying that you should because your blood sugar is out of control, this is something where you could look at as a natural solution to try first. I always say, like, try the natural route first before you go down that pharmaceutical rabbit hole.
Right.
And so, that's something that, we're really excited about.
Well, you and I were like best buddies now. So as you get those ideas, you just text me. You just kind of let me know like, hey, Kyle, what would you do? Would you use this? But I told you about this yesterday, but the audience doesn't know this. So I need to set it up because you've had 24 hours to think about this. But you guys have been circling around, right? Kind of making the rounds on potentially the greatest flavor combo in history. And I say potentially just so people don't get weird, but it's the best flavor combo. Because with Jocko Go, you got cherry vanilla, and then you've also got lemon lime. But if you take cherry and you take lime and you combine them, you get the greatest flavor explosion that God ever allowed for. If there was anything better than that, then people wouldn't turn to Jesus because they'd be like, this is too good. Cherry limeade's as close as we get to that. But as of right now, there is not a RTD, hydration drink or a Go that's cherry limeade. And I got to tell you, man, I need it. I need it right now. You've had 24 hours to think about it. Are you going to come through for me, Brian?
Man, I might. It's funny you mentioned it, and like I mentioned before, I think that's where we got cut off. Was I have worked on cherry limeade or cherry lime flavors in the past, mostly in like hydration stick packs, pre-workouts, and they've never hit right. Admittedly, though, we've never tried a cherry lime Go RTD, and we haven't tried, because it's new, the hydration RTDs. We haven't tried a cherry lime. I think we might entertain that possibility. I think it's a possibility for sure.
All right. I take that as a 100% affirmative that is going to happen. And I know y'all used to do unique things with the names. You don't have to do that. You can just like put my name just somewhere on the label, like just without any explanation or something
Kyle's
like
cherry
that.
limeade.
That's bam, there it is. It's just Kyle's cherry limeade or KT's cherry limeade, something like that. I think that we figured it out. But Brian, you spent a lot of time with us yesterday. We're very thankful that you hop back on today. I know we just had to do it on our phone and do it real quick, but you still look like you're doing okay. You got the beach behind you. Everything seems to be going all right. But that's all for us. Is there anything else you want to get off your chest?
No, man. Like I said, I appreciate you having me on. Great conversation. And we appreciate the support.
Absolutely. Just as a quick commercial, I've absolutely loved Jocko Fuel. I've loved to watch you guys go from Origin Labs to what you've done with Jocko Fuel. It's the only brand that I trust for my personal supplements, and I've been very, very open and vocal about the fact that I am very, very conservative about what I put in my body. So I'm very thankful for you and the rest of the team for what you do. And Brian, thank you for coming on Undaunted.Life, a Man's podcast.
Thank you.
All right, guys, thanks so much for listening to this podcast. Before we let you go, we are going to do a quick resilience boost. At Undaunted Life, our mission is equipping men to push back darkness with content that forges spiritual, mental, and physical resilience. So the only link I've got for you today is a link to the Jocko Fuel website. And guys, just remember, if you use the promo code UNDAUNTED, again, that's the promo code UNDAUNTED, you can get 10% off of your order at Jocko Fuel. So guys, check out the energy drinks, check out the protein, check out all the other supplements, and make sure you check them out at a discount. Use the promo code UNDAUNTED at checkout. Thank you for listening to this podcast. Wherever you're listening to this, please subscribe, rate, and leave us a positive 5-star review. If you want me to come speak live at your event or on your podcast, just shoot me an email to info@undaunted.life. That's info@undaunted.life. Follow us on Instagram and like us on Facebook, and check out our website for everything else, including how to donate to keep more content like this coming your way. Just go to www.undaunted.life. And as always, we want to thank the band Holy Name for allowing us to use their music for our content. The music on this podcast is their song Perpetua, which is off their self-titled debut album on Face Down Records. The links are in the description. I'm your host, Kyle Thompson. Remember, keep pushing back darkness, keep forging spiritual, mental, and physical resilience, keep seeking the Lion of Judah.